My name is Angela Williams-Trapp. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. I am a senior data developer, data warehouse developer, also referred to as a senior data engineer. I work for a company called Inspire Brands. It's a multi-brand restaurant company. I graduated from Howard University. My major was electrical engineering. I am the mother of 2 adult children. One is a student at Brown University, and the other is a graduate student at the University of Miami. And I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. Let's understand what data is. Data is information, right? So I basically design data warehouses. And what a data warehouse is basically a fancy way of storing data. There's a couple of ways to store data. You can store it directly on a physical server. And it can also be stored in the cloud, which is what you hear now. One of the recent terms over the past couple of years that everybody has heard is big data. So if you think about your email is stored somewhere on a server, somewhere in the cloud. You don't even think about it. You just read your email every day. You delete it when you need to. But someone is storing that email. And so what I do is I build that environment so that our customers, who are usually the executive management, they can pull any kind of reports that they need to pull to perform metrics against that data, or their key performance indicators. So if they need to understand how sales did the previous day, or how sales did yesterday versus the same day last year, they can just go into a data warehouse and generate reports against that data. I lead a team of people that develop the processes to load the data into the data warehouse. So we pull the data from all kinds of different sources. We even have weather data because we may need to know how was the weather over the past month or the past day, and did that affect sales? We also have predictive data. So how will the weather be a month from now, and might that affect our sales a month from now? We have obviously labor data to track how employees are working, any labor trends. Customer data obviously is very important. Are our customers coming back and purchasing our products again, or are they one-time customers? So any kind of data that you can think of that might be relevant to a company, that is what a data warehouse developer does. And as a senior data warehouse developer, I lead a team. I do a lot of design. Whenever our customers come to us and say, hey, we want this new feature. We want to be able to store this new type of data, or we want to pull the data from a different source. Then it's my job to design how that process will work. Engineers, we get challenged as students to not just study as an undergraduate engineer, but we get the opportunity to do graduate work as an undergraduate student. And so I got approached by one of my professors to take on what was called a project that was funded by the Army. And we were asked to do some studies behind image recognition, sound, signal, and image recognition. And what that is today, if you look at your phone and it recognizes your iris, it may unlock for you. That's image recognition. That's your phone recognizing your iris. Or when you say, okay, Google, or okay, Siri, that is sound recognition, voice recognition. And an image and a sound are nothing but signals. They have a frequency, an image has a frequency, and that is electrical engineering. The basis of that is electrical engineering. And so I did a lot of the research behind that technology back in the early 90s when I was in school. And so the Army took our research and used it for military purposes. So before it was technology on your phone, the military was using it first. And then it became popular like in the early 2000s. So I am very proud to say that I did a lot of that research while I was in college before anyone knew about it. As I was looking for employment after I graduated, I went to the Black Engineer of the Year conference in Baltimore, Maryland. And I took a bunch of resumes. Back then, no internet or anything like that. So I had all these resumes in my portfolio to take with me because we always have a career fair. And there was a snowstorm that day, and I drove my little beat-up 1980 Buick Regal to get to the career fair. So I was looking for a job. And I get there, and I had the pick of the litter with employers. There was hardly anyone there because I took the time to drive through the snowstorm to get to this conference. And so I walked up to several tables. I get up to one table that was manned by this nice man from Booz Allen and Hamilton, the consulting firm. And he looked at my resume and he said, "So you studied electrical engineering and you taught yourself C?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "I'm going to put your resume in my jacket pocket. I'm not going to even put it in the stack. And we'll call you in a couple of weeks for an interview." And so I got the interview, and it was for an application developer, so a software engineer. And so what I did was I ended up developing applications, and I developed this very important application for the Medical Joint Chiefs of Staff, which, is our United States Department of Defense. And it helped them determine how many nurses and doctors and flying vehicles, helicopters, and things that they needed in the times of battle. So it was kind of almost like a video game. It was a simulation application where they could determine things like that. And so that started my career as an application developer or software engineer. And I even got to travel to Belgium to go to NATO and present my application to the Joint Chiefs of Staff at like 23, 24 years old. So very illustrious start as a software developer. Take as much calculus as possible. If you have any critical thinking courses, definitely critical thinking is important when you're doing design. Obviously, physics is important just to understand the science aspect of engineering. And then beyond that, I would encourage that students take classes like Python, a Python programming class, C#, not so much Java, but definitely Python, C#, and what we call SQL, but SQL, Structured Query Language. Those are very important languages in the world of data engineering. And then obviously on top of that, if your university offers any data design classes, data modeling type classes, those are important as well. And those will really propel you into succeeding in a career in data engineering. What I'd like to caution people about is, it's funny because as soon as a technology term comes into, mainstream media or mainstream the public, when everyone starts to learn about a technical term, they want to apply it to everything. They want to say, "Oh, that's AI, that's AI." So we have to be careful about using the term artificial intelligence on everything. Remember when we all used to say when we Photoshop somebody into a picture? Well, I've heard people say they see Photoshop and they say, "Oh, that's AI." It's not, it's still Photoshop. It's still the same thing. That part has not changed. So yes, to answer your question, yes, I was doing artificial intelligence, but it's not exactly what you think it is. And what we called it back then was neural networking. That was when you train a machine we called it neural networking and machine learning. Because machine learning is when you train a machine to quote unquote learn things, right? And so now it's kind of an all-encompassing term called artificial intelligence. But yes, the more information you give a machine, the more it quote unquote learns. So it's able to, quote unquote answer questions. When you give it a question, it can answer it intelligently, right? And that's where the artificial intelligence comes from, because really all it is us giving a machine more and more information so that they can take all that information and spit out an answer back, and ultimately spit out a whole solution, solve a whole problem, because it has enough information to solve that problem. And really that's what an engineer does, right? So you may ask me this question coming up, but I also want to add that in 10 years from now, even engineers may become obsolete. We may not be as important as we once were, because if you can train something to quote unquote think to solve a problem, and that's all we do is solve problems. And so that's why artificial intelligence is so important. We want to make sure that there's an ethical portion of artificial intelligence so that we're using it for good and not for bad. The challenge that I see is just not bringing more young minds into the profession, helping them understand how they can contribute to this type of profession, how they can become an engineer with some of the skills that they may already have, or some of their career goals, how they might tweak it a little bit to say, hey, maybe I might not want to do exactly what I thought I wanted to do. Maybe I can turn this into an engineering career goal. I'll be honest, I enjoy working in the environment that I do. I enjoy sometimes really working with the majority culture because there aren't as many cultural classes as you might think. A lot of times they do welcome my perspective. So I've been one of the fortunate ones where, let's say a white man may come to me and ask my opinion because he knows that I'm going to think differently. And as long as I'm not afraid to speak up, as long as my solutions and my opinions come from an intelligent, source, then I find that I am always or often asked my opinion on things. And so I do feel like I do have a voice at the table. I think it's a lot of times it's the way that you present yourself. It's about understanding how to form allies. My immediate director is so supportive of me. He is happy to ensure that I continue to work from home remotely. He makes sure that there's no pressure from executive management on, forcing me to come into the office. One, because I live 40 miles away from my office. So that's important. It's important to have a good work-life balance. So when you're able to kind of, be your own cheerleader and also have that support behind you, it doesn't feel as much of a struggle, just because we're a minority in the workplace. My only thing is just encouraging young minority girls to consider the profession. For instance, if you like to do hair, consider maybe what goes behind the chemistry of hair color. Maybe try to understand, is hair color really designed for minority women? Is it really designed for our hair? You might want to consider the chemical engineering aspect of hair color and hair, and coming up with new products that are good for our hair, instead of just thinking about, I want to be a cosmetologist or I want to do hair. So consider the science behind hair, consider the science behind makeup, and how you might be able to design better pigments for minority women in makeup. So I try to, encourage Black girls, minority girls, to just consider the engineering side, because if you can put yourself or see yourself in an engineering career, then the possibilities are endless. You will have, definitely so many more options to go in life. And so I do encourage young women to consider engineering. It's going to be more important for, I think, young girls to see us. So thank you for this interview, because I think that the more we put ourselves out there and make ourselves visible, the more that, young girls will see, oh, there are people that look like me that are doing this. So definitely the pipeline, definitely helping young Black girls understand the importance of math and science. If you're already good at it, stick with it. Because it's going to be useful in some way. And then so the pipeline, sticking with it, deciding whether you want to be a civil engineer, industrial engineer, chemical engineer, electrical engineer, mechanical engineer. There's so many aspects of engineering that you can apply your different interests to. Everything is designed by an engineer. So there's nothing that you can't do. There's nothing that you can think of where engineering is not applied. So all young girls, I think, should consider going into engineering. Of course, it's a biased opinion, but that's definitely what I think. And then as far as attracting and retaining. So a lot of times I think Black women get discouraged from becoming engineers, whether it's because, we're getting married and having kids, or whatever the case is. But even once you get your degree, stick with it.